Hello, everybody, and welcome into the MLB Draft, the live show by Northside Bound. I am joined right now by Todd Johnson and Rich Biesterfeld. Fellas, it's draft day. We're here. We've arrived.
All right.
It's good.
We survived.
We survived. We made it through all the madness. We're here live. We're gonna be here live throughout the entire show leading up to the Cubs pick at number 14 today. It'll be me, Todd, Rich, and then Greg Zumach, who actually just joined, and I'll pull him in fashionably late. I'm
That's
sure.
how you do it. Absolutely.
And we're here covering the draft. I'll help guide some discussion today. I know that some of these guys are more of the draft experts than I am, but I'll help kind of guide some of the conversation. We're gonna have Vinny from down on the farm join us today. We're gonna have Bryan Smith join us from the Cubs on Deck podcast. And we're gonna have a good time covering all the picks leading up to kind of analyzing what's going on, who's coming off the board, when the Cubs are gonna go. But I don't know. I'll kick it to each of you guys first and let you say what is, I guess, most exciting to you guys about what's happening right now. Todd, you want to lead off?
Yeah, I'm just interested to see how many teams go underslot before the Cubs, and just to see who is kind of there that has fallen. Whether it's Nick Kurtz or Trey Savage, or who knows, Bryce Rayner could fall. You never know. So I'm excited to see what happens there.
Yeah, there's a lot of chaos up on top of the draft with the top 10 guys seem like they're set in stone-ish with the players, but like in any order. And I think we've seen from past years that chaos can absolutely ensue. Rich, what do you think about draft day this year?
Oh, it's exciting. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing where some of the guys that I saw in the draft combine working out, where they end up at. Hopefully one of those guys comes to the Cubs.
Yeah, and we're going to talk plenty about the combine. We're going to kick off with you here in a minute, Rich, with the combine, because you had a front row seat to that. Zumach, you dropped your most recent mock draft early this morning. How are things going?
So far, pretty good. I don't know if we want any spoilers, but I've heard from a couple people with Cleveland that are connected to the draft side that my 1-1 pick seems to be correct. So I won't say the name in case you haven't checked it out, and that okay.
is a way to send people to the article.
We can link right down below. I don't know.
Oh my god!
But no, I mean, I think it's going pretty well. Hopefully, folks can hear me okay. I'm looking like a little shaky on the
I was gonna
video,
say you're looking a little glitchy right now. I don't know if you're coming that way to Tom and Rich. Is he coming away?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that's about. I'll kind of mess with that, but at least if I sound good,
yeah, you sound good,
and you can just assume I'm just doing some killer dance moves or something. But otherwise, yeah, so far pretty good. This draft is going to be, it's not last year. Last year we had like a generational draft. We had 5 guys who would go 1-1 basically every year. And last year. And this year, that's not the case, but we do have some interesting guys up top. And what's really interesting is that I think it was Kylie McDaniel, and a couple other folks have kind of said similar stuff, is that the draft definitely has like 14, 15 guys that teams really feel like there's a dividing line. And thankfully the Cubs are picking 14th. So I'm just really excited. I've gotten so many messages from folks, and I really do appreciate it today, but today is kind of crazy. I have not been able to respond. I had folks ask me who the top 3 guys that I thought they're going to take. And I just really want to be like, I don't know, check my mock. Like, I don't know. It's going to be kind of wild tonight.
So I'll be kind of, like I said off the top, I have not dug into this draft nearly as close as I know Zumach and Todd have. So I'm going to be just kind of guiding conversation. I know when we have Vinny on and when we have Bryan on, I might slip away. I'll be doing some stuff in the background with some of the production of the comments, sharing your comments that you leave in the YouTube chat below. I've got some graphics that can be shared throughout this draft that we can kind of take a peek at throughout. But I'm going to leave a lot of the analysis to Zumach and Todd and then our guests that we'll have on. But I did want to lead off this show with Rich. I mean, I think that starting from the top, the Cubs do have the 14th overall pick, as you can kind of see on the ticker down at the bottom, the 14th overall pick this year. And the best place to start seems at the very beginning, where not the very beginning, but the beginning of kind of our eyes on the draft process, which was the all the happenings going on down in Arizona that you got a front row seat to, Rich.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. Yeah, the combine. This is the second year it's been held in Arizona. A lot of fun to watch. Seeing guys taking BP, pitchers throwing brief bullpens, position players fielding ground balls, outfielders taking ground balls, making throws into home. So seeing lots of exciting players. Couple guys with past connections or family connections to the Cubs, like Daniel Avidia. He was once drafted by the Cubs, brother of David Avidia. Carson Wiggins, the younger brother of Jackson Wiggins, who you can definitely tell they're brothers. Look very similar. But yeah, really a lot of fun to see the guys, to kind of see maybe who stood out. I know there were a couple that I know Greg Zumach, you've mentioned. Kellen Lindsay was one who was kind of exciting to me. I think Greg compared him today to Trey Turner, and I hadn't thought of it before, but once he mentioned it, it's like definitely can see it. Very athletic, good at the plate, good speed. So he was one that was exciting to see. A couple other guys, PJ Morlando, big pop out of the bat. He was hitting some bombs. So he's a guy I'm real curious to see where he lands. Miles Bailey, Sawyer Stroh-Snyder, Chase Harlan, Trey Gregory Alford, Joseph Sullivan, and Tag Davis was another one who was interesting, a two-way player, first baseman and a left-handed pitcher. And his dad would actually play, I think, is it Ben Davis, maybe? I'm not positive on the dad's name, but he was one who was kind of interesting to see out there.
Yeah, and I know that there are plenty of people out there to keep your eye on. I don't know, Todd and Zumach, was there anybody that caught your eye in terms of some of the video that we saw, or guys that you were keeping an eye on, whether that's for the Cubs in the first round or later on in the draft?
There were a couple pitchers who threw on day one that would probably be available in the second round right now. The one was a lefty, but it was not. The name just escapes me, but maybe Rich could help me. But he was about a second round pick from a D2 school, but I can't remember his name. But just that whole process of the combine is interesting because it's very much a showcase type structure. It's we don't get to see them play in games, which I've always wanted to see.
Zumach, you have any thoughts on the combine?
Not too much. It kind of matched up with a lot of what we were talking about. I think Daniel Egan is a guy that gets had a really good combine, and folks have definitely talked about how he stood out. He stands out from a metrics perspective, and really kind of backed that up. The other thing I do want to point out too is that, at least from the video side, that like we can only see so much, and the teams can get data, and it's really useful. It's also really useful to get high school hitters with wood bats in their hands, and actually be able to really confidently get data on them. And alongside that, though, is the part that we don't see, which is the interviews. And MLB teams have very, very detailed interviews that they do with a number, not everybody, because they can't meet with everybody. So they're trying to prioritize certain players. And I'm curious on the back end. There's usually some people who make a lot of money in those interviews, and there's some people who might fall a couple picks because of it. They just realize it's not the right organizational fit that they wouldn't have been able to realize until they were in person. So I like the combine. I will be biased and just say that I watched Rich keep uploading MLB draft combine drops, and I was just looking at it like, oh my gosh, there's like hundreds and hundreds of pictures in here, in each and every one, and so it's a bit like a kid in the candy store, kind of just trying to dig into all of that. So great work. I don't know how anybody is watching this and doesn't follow Rich Biesterfeld, but like I think you'd be pretty silly if you haven't already.
I counted it up. I think it was around 675 photos and about 190 players, if I counted right.
I remembered the name of the pitcher was Obermueller from Iowa.
Okay.
I was wondering if that might be his.
Yeah, because Greg and I had talked about him previously, but had to go look at things.
He's really interesting because I saw him in like the Big Ten tournament, and the command wasn't there, and it hasn't been there all year. But that just might be an Iowa thing. Like I don't know, because his stuff looked pretty good.
Yeah, it looked great at the combine.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So I want to kind of reset everything. We've had some more people join the live stream, which is super exciting. Welcome in, guys. Let's kind of reset things and kind of look. The draft has begun. I've got the draft tracker pulled up on my other screen. So in an ideal world, you guys that are watching this don't necessarily also need to be following along on ESPN or MLB Network. You absolutely can if you want. Don't get me wrong. But I will be posting the picks as they come in live, which we actually already have our first pick in, and it is Travis Bazzana from the from Oregon State going to Cleveland.
At least he's
yes,
not a Cardinal.
So happy about that. I am so happy. That is what I said when they won the draft lottery. I've been very clear on that. I understand that they were negotiating reportedly with JJ Weatherholt, and I absolutely buy everything that people were saying and the rationale for that. Basically, the gist is that, and I don't know what they're going to sign for. I have no idea, and I don't want to speak out of turn, and I'm not trying to say that I do know here, but the gist is that the Guardians want to get as much value as possible, right? And they've got picks 36 and they've got picks like 43 or something like that. And if you play your cards right, you can get 3 very first round caliber guys, because no one really signs for full slot at 1-1. They just don't. Paul Skeens didn't do it last year, and Paul Skeens is a generational player. Right. Yeah. He's Paul Skeens, right? Like that's just going to be an additive by itself here pretty soon. And so the Guardians are already likely going to get some kind of a deal here. But I know that the discussion was heavily around, well, you could get, maybe you save like a full $1 million off of that and go with JJ Weatherholt. And I totally understand that. But I'd still, to me, always felt like Travis Bazzana was the one that was going to pop on their internal models. And then a lot of this talk is going to be, hey, like, let's come together and find a middle ground here, because there's just too much to lose. If Travis Bazzana did not go 1-1, there was not as much heat on him at 2 and 3. And so you all of a sudden start talking about getting into Oakland, or what was even talked about today, which kind of sounded like it was floated by people with Cleveland, that he was going to go all the way down to 5. And at that point, that just everyone, if Bazzana's 1-1 on their board and he's going to lose millions by not taking it, like it felt like there was always going to be a middle ground there. I don't know. That was just me, but I could have easily been wrong there.
Yeah, there was talk of him falling all the way down to the Cardinals, and I think they picked 7th. Is that correct?
Yeah, they picked 7th. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he was mentioned to the White Sox a couple times, but they've been more in on a college bat other than Bazzana. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited for him. I'm excited for his family. I'm excited for Guardians fans, because they got a guy that can do a little bit of everything there at second base when he's at the plate. So that's a good pick.
All right, guys. I before that pick came in, I was wanting to say that we will be covering these picks live as they're coming in, as good as I possibly can. I'll be kind of displaying them on the bottom ticker down there eventually here, and kind of providing graphics throughout, like I said. But Rich, before we kind of move along, as we keep moving along with these picks, anything else that you wanted to hit on as far as the combine? I didn't want to leave that in the dust, because I know that you put in some absolute work during your time at the combine down there.
No, not really. I think we covered it. It's like I said, it's just gonna be exciting to see as names start coming off the board and who it is.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. So you guys want to take a look at? I know there's going to be plenty of names we're going to cover throughout this show, but I kind of wanted to take a look at the Cubs system before we got into some of these names, and take a look at how the organization is kind of set up, what the Cubs have gone in terms of their draft picks in recent years, and kind of if we see them kind of following that trend that they've done in recent years, moving that along to this year. I don't know. Todd, you want to lead off with that kind of mindset?
Yeah, I think their top picks have tended to be college over the last 12 years. I mean, we had Almora was the last, prep position player that the Cubs took in 2000. Was it 2012? And then McLeod went on a streak, pretty much college guys all the way, and they stuck with that. And I think in the past couple of years, we've seen them pick guys that have sort of fallen to them and kind of landed in their lap that maybe they didn't think were going to be there in their models. For example, Jordan Wicks. The 2020 draft for me is just an aberration because of COVID and everything. So, high school picks, a lot of them didn't play. Like Ed Howard did not play his senior year of high school baseball. And so he was really the only other prep pick. And some of those, there was a little fiasco with Jensen in 2019 that a deal for another player fell through at the last minute and they sort of scrambled. And then, it's just been interesting, the transition between McLeod and Kantrovitz. McLeod was much more college guy all the way, and college bats were supposed to be for him the most secure and less risky pick, but he wound up taking 3 out of 4 pitchers with his last 4 picks, so it was kind of weird.
Zumach, any thoughts on that?
On the Cubs stuff?
On the Cubs draft, we'll kick to Chase Burns being selected second overall
Sorry,
by the
yeah.
Reds.
Any
thoughts on the trends for the Cubs draft picks and what they might go for in the first round here?
I mean, I think that am I staticky or am I doing okay there?
You're doing okay right now.
I'm doing okay. All right, awesome. I'll try not to get too excitable here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that I would echo what Todd has said, and obviously he is very deep into this and has been for a really long time. I mean, we've just seen an organizational shift, and Cade Horton's been the riskiest pick that they've taken, in the past 3 years, I guess I'll say. I really don't look at 2020 as either a Kantrovitz draft or a McLeod pick, just because of how weird everything was. That doesn't mean that the Cubs don't still own the good and the bad on that. But just looking at trends, I really look at like 21, 22, and 23. And Horton was the riskiest pick out of that. But they've actually taken a few somewhat risky guys in the top 3 each year. And so really, really kind of interesting to see that. I don't know what they're going to do this year. I'm very curious. But I hope that they embrace a little bit of that risk, a little bit of that variance is what we would call that. That a player could really kind of be on the tail end of flopping, but they could be an all-star. And I think that that's with where the organization is, that I think you should be willing to roll the dice if the really safe player that combines the upside and the floor isn't there. Last year, it kind of was in Matt Shaw. And so sometimes you just fix that mistake. You probably shouldn't have been on the board, but this year it's going to be really interesting.
All right, Rich, I want to kick it to you one more time here. I know that you can feel free to come and go as you please on this broadcast. I will be doing the same. I think we've gone long enough without without making our predictions, right? I think that each of us probably need to right now, before we get too deep into the names, we're going to keep making predictions throughout the show, I'm sure. But I want to run down each of us and kind of give our predictions on who we think might go to the Cubs at 14. I'll kick it off with you, Rich, before giving you the opportunity to come and go, like I said.
Okay. I'm going to go with I'm going to probably screw up pronouncing his name, but Trey Savage. I think that seems to be where the majority of things are. But with my disclaimer that the Cubs usually come up with somebody that isn't even on the radar, from what I've heard, until they make the pick.
What else we got, guys? Todd?
Oh, I think
You're
Todd's muted. I'll jump in real quick and say I dropped my mock. I'm sticking with you, Savage.
Yeah, I predicted you Savage this afternoon. If he somehow winds up going to Boston, I think we could be looking at a prep shortstop. And there's like 4 or 5 of them. They could get a nice underslot deal and a nice overslot for someone in the second round. So,
yeah, I think I'm hopeful for you, Savage. That's the guy I want to see the Cubs pick. I'm worried that he's going to be off the board by the time the Cubs come around to their pick. So I'm gonna throw 2 names out there. Both I think could be gone, but the hope is that one of them is still around. Trey Savage, and I'd love to see Tibbs fall down to the Cubs at number 14 as well. So 1 pitcher, 1 position player. I like both of those guys. I've seen Cam Smith mocked there quite a bit as well, another Florida State guy. But I'm gonna stick with Tibbs and Savage as 2 guys that I'm really gonna be interested in seeing just if they fall down to the Cubs.
Yeah, the Cam Smith stuff is really interesting because if it is Cam Smith, then the Cubs were not very guarded today. And I don't know if an agent let it slip or something that there's a lot of interest because like everyone's mock started to shift today to Cam Smith and which is totally fine. So, there's probably so much weaving and zigging and zagging in all these negotiations and conversations and not that big a deal. But yeah, if it's Cam Smith, I mean, I think the Cubs didn't really, they might've been holding their poker cards the opposite direction. Yeah. Oh man, Charlie Condon. Well, you know what? I tell you what, if I just had reprinted my mock 1.0 again today, I'd be 3 for 3. So, oh well, I guess. But Condon is going to be just dynamic in Colorado. That is big time power. They love power. He showed it. He's more than just power, but we're talking the top of the draft. He does combine a lot of different things. I'll be curious where they play him. I would personally start him at third base and just kind of see if he can go up there. I don't know what he was announced at. But yeah, Charlie Condon to Colorado feels like a fantastic fit.
Yeah, Condon announces an outfielder for Colorado, which is interesting. Todd, I don't know. I kind of expected, the Rockies always have their pitching issues. They had the opportunity to take the best pitcher on the board, the second, who I view as the best pitcher on the board, in Hagen Smith. Kind of surprised they went the Condon route, honestly.
Well, I think between the 2 C boys with Condon and Caglione, they couldn't lose with picking either one of those. So
that's true.
But Condon in that ballpark, oh my goodness, get him in your deep fantasy leagues where you get to get rookies and stuff, because he would be my number 1 pick to sign up from this class. I think he's the most talented, and he's going to be a star.
I don't know if anybody else is getting messages. It sounds like it's going to be a surprise at 4, but I don't really know exactly yet. I don't know where we are. I don't have the draft loaded up, so it's possible it's already going on. But that should be interesting if this is the case. So I guess we'll see.
I think it's going to be an underslot.
Yeah, I would imagine if it is actually this person.
Joe Doyle just reported it was Kurtz.
Kurtz. Okay. All right. Interesting. That's.
Well, Dustin West is crushed.
Yeah. He did not make it to 13 like I thought. Yeah, Kurtz is really interesting. He entered the year kind of in that range. Top 5 guy. Dealt with some shoulder stuff. But I mean, I think that it plenty worthy if you feel good about the medicals, which I would imagine Oakland does.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, that'll be really interesting. I would absolutely agree with what Todd's saying is probably a pretty big underslot here. Not a knock on Kurtz at all, just the depth of where this is. And things have really, really lined up for the White Sox. They can do a lot of things here. If I had to guess, I would guess Caglione. But they can do Caglione, they could do Weatherholt, they can do Griffin. Those are probably like top 3 guys realistically on their board. So at least from what I heard from people with the Sox. And so like that's pretty crazy stuff. If they pivot anything off of that, I'll be really surprised.
I would think that the White Sox should go Caglione here. I mean, I don't know why you would not. I don't know anybody who's next best on the list. I mean, unless you get Smith to replace, what's his name? What's this?
Crochet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mind's blanking without food. Yeah. To get Crochet, that would be an interesting pick. I mean, Braden Montgomery, despite a broken ankle, might be the best, all around talent still in the draft other than Keggs. But man, that would be one powerful bat to the porch in right field there at White Sox ballpark. Whatever is it guaranteed rate now? Is that what it's called?
I mean, whatever.
Yeah. The house.
No offense to the White Sox fans here. We're tuning into the Cubs broadcast, of course. But I don't have an issue with the White Sox, but I don't have the same affinity for their stadium as Wrigley Field. Not a big shocker. So it's. I will say there are some folks, not necessarily teams. I don't want to make it sound like I know who's on their board, but there are some folks who have Weatherholt as the best player in the group, like in the entire class.
Wow.
And so like Caglione, there are people that feel similarly to him about him. Like I had one scout tell me, because I scout from a team. It helps when you talk to a team that has like absolutely zero shot of taking this guy. They'll be a little bit more transparent about this stuff. Right. And so I had one scout who saw him a lot this year. It was like, he can do things on a baseball field that like nobody in college baseball is doing. That's draft eligible. There was another guy I won't mention in the SEC that they kind of described some of the similar stuff, but it's basically he can do like superhuman things. And then there are folks that think Weatherholt combines absolutely everything that you would want in a profile. And then there are some folks who think Connor Griffin has the highest ceiling in the class. And so you're kind of looking at 3 really awesome picks here. And then watch, they'll take like Hagen Smith, which would be fine. And another very good player.
Can we talk about the fact that that after the White Sox and Royals pick, that the Cardinals are going to be up with one of Caglione, Weatherholt, and Smith still on the board, which kind of sucks?
Yeah, I hate it. Yeah.
Thanks for ruining my evening, Greg.
Yep, you're welcome. That's why I'm here. It feels like Hagen Smith feels like a Cardinals pick. Like he feels like a Cardinals guy, like down to a T, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Apparently.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know. They might go Montgomery. You never know. Or there's still a lot of good players out there. I mean, Jordan Walker has not panned out at all, so they may need to replace that at some point. But
I can't say I have the slightest bit of concern about Jordan Walker, though. To be completely honest with you, I think that Jordan Walker is going to be just fine. So, all right, guys, let's. I know we do have Vinny in the waiting room. We can pull him on here shortly. Any thoughts on we have plenty of people in the chat as well, which we really appreciate you guys tuning in. This is absolutely awesome. Honestly, guys, this is one of my favorite things to do every single year. I know I missed last year, but I've been doing a live show since the 2020 draft. We dug in pretty deep during that 2020 draft when there was no minor league baseball. And I've loved doing that every single year. So, but I enjoy this. This is one of my favorite things. I know you guys feel the same way, but I just want to put that out there.
Can I take a trip down memory road?
Yeah.
While we wait for the Sox to take the player that we were just talking about, actually. Yeah. And But I remembered, as I wasn't writing at that time in 2020, but it was part of the time that really inspired me to write. Actually, was the two things to start a podcast and stuff is Greg and Jimmy. One of them was the draft show, which I listened to that, and I listened to featuring Todd as well, and then the Prospects Live Draft. Those were amazing. And then the other thing was their interview with Max Bain. And I've told Greg this and Jimmy this, that was the detail and all of the intricacies about that was like, I want to write about this. I want to be having these conversations. So I guess you can either assign blame to these folks or some kind of positives. I don't know. But I just want to say I really thought that the way that you guys operated that first year, which has served as a template for this, was awesome. And, I appreciate you captaining the ship here. I know I couldn't do it, so I just want to say I really appreciate it.
I really enjoy doing like the producing stuff, like keeping this ticker up to date, keeping the banners up to date, stuff like that. These graphics, I really enjoy doing that, especially when like I mentioned at the top, like I don't know these guys like you guys do, so I really appreciate you guys just listening to you guys talk, and then I get to enjoy your expertise.
It was weird that winter, because but I remember interviewing Max, and I had like 3 questions. I asked one question, and he talked for 20 minutes on that one question. And then I don't even think
expect nothing less from him, right?
Yeah, no, he printed out this. He typed up a whole biography of himself and sent it to me. It was like 7 pages long. It was like the greatest thing ever. That was one of my favorite all-time interviews. I didn't think I could ever top it, so I don't think I did an interview for like 3 or 4 years. So Hagen Smith went to the White Sox.
I think we're getting ready to pull Vinny onto this because we're getting ready to. We're approaching pretty quickly the time when some names that have been linked to the Cubs might start going off the board here. Not too long. So let's see. I know Vinny is in. Want to make sure that he is available. All right, let's see if we can pull him in. And I might dip. I'll let you guys, Zumach and Todd. I'll let you guys right the ship here.
Vinny, what's happening, my man?
What is up? How are we doing, guys?
This is an exciting start. It
has definitely been a very eventful morning, just chatter-wise, let me tell you. It's been playing the smokescreen game, and then all the LSU stuff came out and came to fruition.
Yeah.
Like, it's been a very active morning, and it sounds like this pick with Kansas City is about to shake some stuff up.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think we're probably on the same page here. They've got a few different guys that they can choose from. I've definitely heard college. I won't spoil the pick, but I think we're talking college, and somebody that can do some pretty impressive things. And I mean, at this point, which again, frustrating. I know that Greg kind of teed us up on this, but the Cardinals are in a really enviable position here.
They are.
Yeah, they really are in a truly frustrating moment, but that's okay. That's all right. We'll get him at 14.
Yeah, I would have go back like 2 or 3 days ago, Caglione being on the board at 6, I would have called you crazy. But that's it's just crazy how this unfolds. Like,
I had somebody who's really tight with the White Sox mention that they did not think that Caglione was going to pass the White Sox. That was like, I don't think he's going to get to him, but if he does, it's done.
Yeah, I've heard similar.
And we haven't gotten the money on all this, right? Like, because Caglione could have. Kansas City has additional funds. Well, not as much actually, because they just gave their CBA pick away. So yeah, this is actually really interesting. I don't know. I'm not sure how it all shakes out.
Yeah, I know. I'm very interested to see the whole Bazana, the money on him, because coming out, I think it was late last night, he shared Weatherholt shares agents with Morlando and Griffin Burkholder. So I wonder if they were really trying to in on William Schmidt, and that kind of like forced their hand, because we didn't know Bazana until literally probably 10 minutes before the draft. Like, it was down to the wire.
Yeah. Caglione is going to the Royals per Joe Doyle. And Joe's been on top of everything tonight. So
I'm interested to see if he's going to be a first base or an outfielder, or if they're going to two-way
yeah,
with
that'd be
Caglione.
Yeah,
I
in
mean-
my original mock a couple months ago, I had Caglione falling to the Cardinals. So I just gotta say I'm very happy that did not happen. Todd, what were you gonna toss in there?
I don't know how many innings he pitched this year. I know he pitched, but it wasn't a lot, I don't think. I don't know if he pitched over 30 innings or
Yeah, I can't remember, to be honest.
yeah. I can look it up.
Yeah. I remember my personal feeling on Caglione is he does things that people just can't do on the baseball field as a hitter. I have some big chase rate questions on him, but I think at the end of the day, if you're still going to gamble on upside, like he's a really good guy to gamble on, because if you can just get him to like spit on the slider on the outside corner, I think you'll feel pretty good about it. And also, and I don't know how this is going to play in pro ball, it's really hard to justify him not chasing out of the zone when he has had actual pitches that he has hit out of the zone for home runs. So it's like, I mean, is every chase bad? I would argue no, and most teams do feel the same way. And so it's got to be a more nuanced discussion. So yeah, it does sound like he pitched a little bit. Todd just dropped this into our local chat there, 73 and 2/3 innings. So that's pretty decent. But yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I think that. Do you think Wetterholt is next, Vinny?
I don't know. They've been connected a lot with Bryce Rainier, so, and I don't think they were expecting Weatherholt to be here either. So I think it's a pretty good 50-50 shot here. But someone is going to get a massive value on JJ Weatherholt, and they should be celebrating.
I think so. I think the Cardinals make sense here, but I think he goes in the next couple picks. And then the other thing that I do not want to speculate too broadly, but we should probably be monitoring is at what point is Connor Griffin going to LSU?
Yeah.
They sound, well, I don't want to speak out of turn. I think he's going to have a high number. That's I'll just say. And there's going to be a threshold upon which, yes, maybe he makes it down to the Cubs, but I don't know if he's signable. I guess I'll just say that. I don't know. I don't want to speak out of turn, but yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
there was the buzz to start off with the whole LSU situation was there was going to be at least one guy. Schmidt fell, and then it continued to be, watch out, there could be another guy going to LSU. I doubt it's Caminetti. I really do. I don't know on Griffin, but this could be telling of something that's coming.
Mm.
Montgomery, yeah, Braden Montgomery is falling, but I don't know if he gets to 14.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to make it past 10. But I read your mock draft this afternoon, Vinny, and you seem to be in line with everybody here that Savage is going to be available at 14 for the Cubs. What do you think he's going to bring to the table for Cub fans?
I mean, we have had a very lackluster of pitcher development in the most recent years of the highest caliber. Savage arguably comes right in. He's probably our second best pitching prospect. Well, definitely our second best behind Horton, but you're talking about 3+ pitches, a very good track record, good underlying metrics on all of his pitches. Like, this is the type of arm that you dream on and could be on a faster track than any other arm that you would potentially see in any other draft. So, like, I'm looking right now, I'm trying to figure out if we do go Savage, where I would rank him, because it's pretty close. It's somewhere within the top 8. But, I mean, just watching him this year, it was super fun. The delivery, it does scare some people, but I'm not scared away by it. But the offering alone should have everyone intrigued.
Uh,
The body's very good too. Like when you're talking about a prototypical right-handed workhorse type of pitcher, Savage checks all the boxes.
yeah. Just saw Joe
Yeah.
Doyle pitched. Weatherholt is going to St. Louis.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
I mean, this is a guy that could have gone 1-1. And that really sucks for the Cubs, right? But for any, if you're a Cardinals fan listening to this, thank you. I don't anticipate you're here, but if you are, thank you. I mean, I think you got a really, really, really good player. In JJ Weatherholt, I think that he does everything from a batted ball standpoint that you could possibly want. At the end of the day, the injuries scare me pretty significantly, and I do wonder if that's why the Cardinal or the White Sox weren't interested. I mean, I understand that hamstring injuries aren't contagious and you're not going to constantly always get those, but a history of really significant multiple hamstring injuries is scary. And this is an organization that I am not here to knock the guy, but they dealt with Nick Madrigal's hamstring injuries, and he's really never been able to gain traction because of it. And so, like, do you make that investment with him with other really, really good players on the board? Apparently they felt no. Maybe it wasn't medical, and maybe they just thought Hagen Smith is an ace, and they can have him up next year, which they might. But it is really interesting. From the Cardinals' perspective, this is a gamble on upside. This is an organization that can absolutely plug and play this guy, and he's really, really good. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be really interesting to see what LA does here. That's probably my first hurdle with Savage. I think that is just because Burns and Smith are off the board. They've been talking about going pitcher. Could they go with him? They've also talked about Rainier too, and a few of the other college guys. But like those are, this is my first hurdle. If they don't take, which it doesn't sound like they're taking Savage, I guess I'll get that. And
Yeah. So who's your best available at 8? Vinny, who's your best available at 8?
Best available at 8 would have to be either Connor Griffin or Rainier.
Do you think Griffin does go to LSU?
I don't know. I feel like I want to say no, but the last minute with Schmidt kind of has me scared because I was expecting Schmidt to sneak into the first round, but
let me toss out an idea to you, and that's Connor Griffin to Washington, because they just bought that CBA pick.
I was just going to bring that up.
There you go.
As the Washington pick, I think is the most interesting pick of this. The last minute, day before deadline acquisition of a CBA pick. I think that was a little telling of what they're planning to do, but I don't want to speculate too much. I'm interested who they're going to take under slot at 10, though. That's where my mind is at. And it looks like one of the bigger underslot guys is going next.
Yeah, should be interesting. So, I guess I'll kick it. Let me kick it back to Rich Biesterfeld here, who I am very curious, Rich, have you seen any of the players that have gone so far?
No. What I think you're kind of finding is that most of those top guys, they don't really have anything to showcase. They're kind of locked in at that top. I think there might have been a couple that were there just to do some interviews and stuff like that on MLB Network, but none of these guys were working out at all.
Did you get to see Rainier or Griffin?
Not Rainier. Okay. Griffin doesn't ring a bell for sure, but I'll have to look at my notes again. It was with so many guys, it tended to blur after a while.
Oh, I mean, I don't know how you don't have a complete encyclopedic memory of 614 pictures. Also want to give a shout out real quick. We got the info and we heard for a couple weeks that Lance Brazdowski, friend of the podcast, friend of Northside Bound, friend of a few folks here, is on MLB Network right now. I want to give him a huge shout out. he's going to be doing an amazing job. I think we're really blessed to have him with the Cubs coverage, but he's just awesome to listen to. And I know I will go back on the back end and watch the draft.
Yeah, he actually did some work on the combine too, which was fun to see him there with Jim Callis.
He had really good coverage at the combine. I was actually
Yeah.
blown away with, especially the Obermueller. Oh, he was so good at the combine.
Yeah. We talked about him earlier today. Christian Moore. Yep, there you go. That's a little high, I think. Don't you guys think?
Yeah. I was the original month ago was like Angels were looking at college pitching. So I wonder what changed. I wonder if they're planning to do something sneaky in the second round here with going with more, or maybe they're paying more for a full slot. But this is a really interesting pick because this is a potentially, a money-saving pick going into a couple picks that have some pretty interesting CBA picks.
I mean, there's a lot of big names still on the board at 9. You got Montgomery, you got Griffin.
Hey, Carter. Welcome.
You got Rayner. There's a lot of big names.
Yeah, I was not expecting. I was expecting one of these guys to slip, but multiple is a little surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah, we start getting into we're at pick 9. And we've got to get to 14. And you just start doing the math on this, and there's just a lot of really good players on the board. Now, I do think when we get closer to it, I would still be pretty surprised if Connor Griffin was affordable for the Cubs at 14. So I think you can kind of cross him off. But honestly, these are still some really, really, really good names that could be available there. And, Braden Montgomery would be amazing. Braden Montgomery was a guy I was texting with some Cubs folks at the College World Series last year saying, this is my guy. Like, I love what he's doing from the left-hand side. He was squaring up Chase Burns. He was actually doing better against Dollander last year's 10th overall pick or whatever to the Rockies, but was doing fairly well against even Burns a little bit. And I loved what Braden Montgomery does. I think he goes probably here in the next couple picks, but if he's on the board at 14, I would love it. Savage, you know how I feel about that. Rainier is really interesting because if we're talking preps and prep shortstops, he would be a guy that I think that would really, really interest the Cubs. There hasn't been a ton of prep chatter out of California with the Cubs, but Rainier is one. And then, Cam Smith got a lot of run this year or recently. Tibbs, it's going to go here at some point. Stuff like that. I think these are really good players.
Yes,
we were on pick 9, correct?
I feel like we're going to have someone there that we weren't expecting to be there.
Yeah.
Maybe even better than a Cam Smith or a Trey Savage. This next pick is it's been pretty public the past couple days, but man, that Detroit and Nationals, those two picks are going to be very interesting here coming up.
Yeah, and I think San Francisco and Boston are too. These are really, really interesting kind of Cubs implications. I'll say Cubs implications there. It definitely feels like they could, every single one of them could pick a guy that that's exactly who I would think the Cubs would take.
Yeah. Boston already got one of their top guys picked, and I am very interested to see now where they pivot to.
Yeah.
But this is all the fun of the draft. This is what we live for. We don't like when it's, cookie cutter, exactly what we were mocking. This is where the fun comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure. I think I've gotten I'll try to see. Yeah, I've done at least one. I've gotten at least one on my mock 2.0. I think I have 3 or 4 people so far correct if I had just gone with my Mach 1.0. So maybe I was overthinking it a little bit. But this is a blast. So Vinny, let's go with you on your prediction now. I think we're going to be wrapping up with you here pretty soon. So knowing what you know now, seeing the board as it is, what's your Cubs pick of 14? What do you think?
Oh man, I'm gonna have to say Cam Smith because that was my original pick back when I was scared of the Red Sox potentially snaking them away from us. So I'm gonna go back with third baseman Cam Smith, Florida State. I mean, just watching him the whole entire College World Series was something special. Like even just coming into this year, you could tell he totally worked on everything. Like you saw the strikeouts cut back. Honestly, I think you saw a little bit more power too. Like the body's probably tapped, developmentally, but he is a interesting player, especially for the Cubs. Could answer some of the third base needs, but he is a scary talent to be sitting there at 14.
I like it. That's awesome. That's awesome, Vinny. Appreciate it. Let's see here. All right, we are coming up. Got Pittsburgh. I haven't heard anything on Pittsburgh quite yet.
No.
Oh wait, yeah. Okay. Are we thinking college bat here? Is this where we're at? Okay.
Yeah, this was kind of a cookie cutter pick if you started looking at mocks like a couple days ago. So
yeah, should be interesting. Well, Vinny, before you go, what has been your most surprising pick so far?
Oh man, it's either Burns at 2 or Kurtz at 4. Because at this whole entire week and a half leading up to here, it felt like everyone was just down on Nick Kurtz. But I mean, I saw him live this year. It's probably one of the best left-handed bats in this whole entire draft. He makes hard contacts. The barrel stays in the zone very well. He's not limited to pull either. I mean, there may be some trouble with pitch recognition, but not enough to absolutely knock him down. He's probably the most athletic and defensively sound first baseman we've seen in our first round in a couple of years. So there's injury concerns with him, but I saw nothing that was glaring of him to fall to the teens.
Griffin at 9 to the Pirates.
Okay. All right. So he is signable, apparently. I mean, we would anticipate here. And Pittsburgh does have a comp pick that's fairly early. I think it's trying to remember which one it was here. Like 31, 32, something like that.
Oh, that's
wow. I didn't think Montgomery would fall this far.
Yeah.
That is.
He's a beast.
Good for you, Pittsburgh. You guys got a pretty big value here.
Yeah.
Oh, we're only 4 picks away.
I know. It's getting tight. It's getting close. We've got some really, really good players that are kind of on the board here. I'm very curious to see what Washington does here. I think this is going to be really, really interesting. And are they going to go underslot here? Because that's the other conversation that came up. Do they go underslot here to go really overslot at pick 39 that they got from the Royals last night?
Yeah, there was some rumors of them potentially going underslot to catchers, so maybe that could be coming to fruition here, but I think it's very interesting to watch. Yeah,
absolutely.
I have to let a dog out. I'll be right back.
That is Todd Johnson answering the age-old question of who let the dog out.
All right, guys, I'm back.
That's right, with a vengeance.
I'll replace Todd in the meantime until he comes back. So this has been fun, guys. This has been fun. Vinny, I appreciate you coming on, man. I don't mean to hop on and kick you off at all. That's not what I'm intending at all, because people in the chat are loving you, dude. Yeah. You have been amazing, and we really appreciate you coming on, man.
Yep.
Thank you. I had to come back. This was so fun last year. The suspense of the Kyle Teeler, Matt Shaw was electric. But this is always fun.
All right, man. We'll talk to you very soon. We'll look for your input on. Well, I guess go ahead and plug yourself before we let you go.
Yeah, you can find me on Down on the Farm 8 on Twitter. There is another Down on the Farm, as people in the Discord discovered today, but I am 08. My mocks are out. My mocks, don't look at my mocks, please. Please don't. Please. They're really bad today. But yeah, I cover pretty much everything, minor league baseball, draft, you name it. If I'm not on Twitter, I'm at a minor league game. So
we appreciate you, and yeah, everybody go check Vinny out. Check out what he's doing. It's all great work, worth following along for sure. So Vinny, appreciate it, and we'll reach back out to get your thoughts on the Cubs pick after the draft happens. All right.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good night.
Take care. All right, guys, we got Bryan joining us here in a few minutes. We're gonna give him a few minutes before hopping him on, but we're cruising through this, guys. We're cruising through. We are now at pick number 10 with the Washington Nationals. It is not coming as far as I'm aware. We're at pick number 10. We're right around the corner from the Cubs pick. How you guys feeling?
We are feeling good. So I want to go back because we were getting some messages, and I think some other folks were getting some messages about what the Pirates were doing. And this is actually very reminiscent of 2019 with the Cubs, where I think it was Jeff Passan announced like that they had taken Matt Allen. A few folks who I really respect their reporting, their info, their intel, were saying that James Tibbs was going to be the pick, and they were kind of shooting messages across. And I was getting some other folks texting me saying like, hey, like I think this is the one. So that's kind of what we're talking about, college bats, which is interesting. I'm not as keyed in as some of these guys, but I think like even Jeff Ponce, who does amazing work with BA, Baseball America, we're saying that. And so it's interesting because obviously they went Griffin, right? And that's I wonder if those negotiations were coming down to the wire, like within a minute, a second by second kind of basis, which will bear some thoughts going forward. Right now, we've got 10 Washington, 11 Detroit, 12 Boston, 13 San Francisco, and then the Cubs. And so you start kind of just taking out some of these names: Cam Smith, James Tibbs, his teammate, Trey Savage, Gerangelo Sanchez.
Easy for you to say.
Which we can get to. You know, I actually practiced for
that was actually really good.
Episodes. Yeah.
I'm glad you were the first one to say it, not me, because I couldn't have.
I had to ask like 5 people in the game this, and Sanchez is the best pronunciation I was able to get. They're pretty convinced on that. So, you know, we start talking about some really, really good players that are sitting there. Not even the fact that we haven't mentioned a guy like Ryan Waldschmidt, who I've heard from folks say that the Cubs would be very interested in him. He's really good from a batted ball perspective. He looked really good in Omaha. You know, for the College World Series, he had a very productive year. It's not flashy from like a position situation. I think he's very clearly a left fielder for me. But overall, yeah, very exciting. I'm just now realizing that my computer is not plugged in or charging. So I'm going to stop right now before I'm getting like error messages telling me I'm going to log off.
That's fair. I'll kick you off here. You rejoin. I'll pull you back in. I think it's about time for Bryan anyway. So, all right, guys. Todd, everything good on your end?
Yeah.
All right. I'm glad that Zumach realized now, because we're getting into crunch time.
Oh.
Wouldn't want the computer to die right as the Cubs pick is being coming in.
That'd be a heck of a show.
Rich just wrote in our chat that Seaver King to the Nationals at 10. That's about 5 to 8 picks early.
That is kind of perfect as far as giving more options to the Cubs at 14, because he was not supposed to be off the board by 14.
No, he was not.
That's exciting. All right. I think that with that, we are going to add both Zumach back in and Bryan. Bryan, how's it going, dude?
Hey, good to see everybody. I'm here to report that Christian Moore has been called up to the major leagues. So, he'll
That's
be
a
with the
little
Angels
late,
after
honestly.
the break.
Surprised they waited that long.
That's incredible.
Hey, how's everyone doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, man. We're just cruising through here.
Yeah.
Now, are you a full-time Little League coach now?
That's about it these days. I bother Huss every couple weeks, but other than that, that's what I'm doing.
Accurate.
Good for you.
Accurate.
But I'll say this: I texted Zumach. I mean, it had to be 8-9 months ago now that I thought Braden Montgomery was going to be the best player from this draft, and it is weird that we're getting down to the possibility of him being available to the Cubs. So as just a guy who likes to cling to his priors more than anything else, I'm very hopeful that he ends up with the Cubs and then becomes the player I think he could be.
Well, that would be nuts.
I was gonna say, where do you stand right now, Bryan? Because I'm gonna jump off here and jump back on in a little bit, but I'll leave you with the question of where do you stand? Where do you think the Cubs are going at 14 now that you've seen some of the names come flying off the board?
I was thinking about the last couple drafts, and every year, of course, we have players that fall, right? And I, being on the show last year with like Kyle Teal falling, and the year before with whether it was Cam Collier or Kevin Pareda or Zach Neto, all guys that, a lot of people were excited about the Cubs drafting. I think the Cubs stick to their plan, generally speaking. I don't think that they are that susceptible to getting sort of caught up in the moment. I think, they probably mapped out possibilities of some of these guys falling, but for the most part, like they have an A plan, a B plan, and a C plan, and I think that they're gonna stick to it. So, I guess that being said, like somebody like James Tibbs, if he was going to go to the Pirates unless Connor Griffin didn't make it there, I would think the Cubs probably like made a plan that didn't involve Tibbs or something like that. So I tend to think that they're going to stick with like an underslot strategy with their eyes on a big bonus in round 2. So I've been thinking Ryan Waldschmidt from Kentucky is the pick. I would stick to it right now, but man, every pick we get closer with those big names on the board, it makes me wonder.
Yeah. Oh, bad air here. What's been the most surprising pick so far for you? Was it King or?
I think it was Kurtz, honestly. I guess, I mean, if you think about it at the beginning of the year, that pick would have made total sense. But the way that the season played out, I just thought that there were some upside guys available at that pick that, as a fan base, you would just rally behind the absolute excitement of guys like Jack, even Braden, who was slotted there by a lot of people. Nick is a little more of a grinder. I mean, he is sort of a Billy Bean guy in a lot of ways, so it kind of fits the organization well. But that one did surprise me.
Yeah, the Kurtz comp that will resonate and maybe get some angry looks because comps are always really, really tricky.
Yeah,
it's Anthony Rizzo. It is hard to be a plus defensive first baseman. He's a plus defensive first baseman. Takes a tremendous amount of walks, limits chase, limits whiffs. Could he be the greatest leadoff hitter of all time? I don't know. He would have to beat Rizzo in that regard, but and have a 0 ERA, which would be difficult. But at the end of the day, Kurtz is a very good player. I do worry about the shoulder, so that is kind of interesting.
Rayner just went to the Tigers.
Man, this is shaping up really well for the Cubs.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to get my hopes up here because I think that I trust the Cubs draft team. And we've seen in past years where there's been some guys that have fallen down the board and the Cubs have still gone a different route. So I'm trying not to get my hopes up here, but I don't know, man. It's looking pretty fun for as far as the Cubs options.
Todd mentioned me being a Little League coach this year. My favorite player that I coach in all the world shares a name with a certain Florida State third baseman. So I really have my hopes set on Cam Smith just for, personal family reasons. And that seems like a very real possibility here too. So if you if that's the pick, I think you guys are going to hear my son from upstairs screaming.
Well, I mean, we're 3 picks away, right? We've got Boston, and then we've got San Francisco, and then we've got the Cubs. The guys still on the board that are kind of highly ranked are Braden Montgomery is still there. He entered the day as the MLB pipeline number 8th ranked prospect, according to them. Trey Savage is still on the board. He was the 11th ranked prospect. James Tibbs is still on the board. He was a 12th ranked prospect. Cam Smith, like you mentioned, Cam Caminiti's there. Like, I feel like the Cubs have their choice. Even if these next 2 picks go Savage and Braden Montgomery, you can still pull the trigger and get Cam Smith or James Tibbs.
Yeah, I mean, they're in a good spot here.
Todd, I'll kick it to you. Who's your pick right now?
I'm still sticking with Savage. I think he's going to make it. I don't think that. I think the Giants are looking for something else. They're looking for hitting rather than a pitcher. I think that's going to be the only thing that allows Savage to get to the Cubs. If Boston takes Montgomery here, I think the Cubs look pretty good for Savage.
We got some music in the background from somebody.
I had a dryer going.
Oh, is it?
The banger,
right.
Todd.
So we got coming up here. Looks like we've got a Boston pick coming up here next. Looking like it might be an infielder, which is fine.
Yeah,
potentially an infielder, which is I don't know, man. We started off the entire show just saying, hey, we all want Trey Savage. Bryan, what's your thought on if Trey Savage ends up falling down here?
Yeah, I mean, if Savage is the pick, that means the Cubs, just about their most trusted scout was in the draft room banging on the table trying to get his man, and just from a pure sort of appeal to authority standpoint, if Billy Swope thinks he's a worthy pick there, then who am I to say otherwise?
So, okay, what if the situation arises here where you've got Braden Montgomery and you've got Trey Savage still on the board there at 14? Zumach, where do you go?
I am personally picking Savage, but maybe out of stubbornness, just because that's who I've picked. Although, admittedly, I was sending some messages to Cubs folks at last College World Series. I think I mentioned that earlier about Montgomery, and here's my guy. Shoot, I don't know if it's the two of them. Yeah, I think maybe I'll go Savage. The thing with Montgomery is I'm not sure he's a switch hitter at the next level. And I think he's a left-handed hitter only, and a really good one, by the way, like a really good left-handed hitter. But I don't think he's a switch hitter at the next level. And I think that he's definitely not a two-way guy, which he probably won't be announced at anyway. It's not a Caglione situation. He does pitch. But I would just stick him in right field, possibly even let him play center field and just make him a left-handed hitter only. Maybe you give him like instructs to prove one way or the other, but I'm probably not spending too much time on that. And yeah, shoot. I mean, you've probably picked the two guys that are the hardest to pick between.
Montgomery just went to the Red Sox.
Okay, well, I'm not going to need
that answers your question. Yeah.
Yeah. Montgomery goes to the Red Sox?
Yeah.
Oh, I got bad intel then. Oh, man. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's Joe.
Yeah, I see that as well.
Oh, no, I mean, I totally trust Joe Doyle here. I just got...
Yeah.
Worth pointing out that they were the Kyle Teal team last year. So that is a team that operates like highly fluidly, happy to take a guy that's falling, happy to sort of rejigger their bonus structure. No. I would imagine Montgomery only fell probably because he has a pretty stubborn bonus number, and he found someone willing to pay it.
Do you think that's the best pick of the draft so far, Bryan?
Yeah, I think he's going to be a heck of a player. So, yeah, I can't argue with that. I mean, we'll have to see where the number comes in. I mean, I guess it's important for us to say here before the Cubs pick, like, this is not always a pure, like, the best player does not always go in order in this draft. And and every pick is a part of an overall strategy. And so, Montgomery, it's hard to say the best pick until we sort of see the numbers. How much does taking Montgomery, and they know by taking him that they're going to sign him, but how much does that handcuff a couple of their future ideas they might have in the second, third, or fourth round?
All right, we're waiting on the Giants pick. We're waiting on the 13th overall pick, the San Francisco Giants. They have their pick of Trey Savage, of James Tibbs, of Cam Smith, of Cam Caminetti, who has been linked to the Giants quite a bit in mock drafts, has Caminetti. And then the Cubs are right after the San Francisco Giants, waiting there for who's on the board. I don't know. I guess, Zumach, this seems like a question for you. I'll kick it to everybody for their input, but I'll start with you. Is if we don't see one of these names, if it's not Savage, if it's not Tibbs, if it's not Cam Smith, if it's someone deeper down the board, who might it be?
I'll toss out a name here. Ryan Sloan, local guy. I personally think he goes to the Rays at 18. But if you wanted a different kind of a deeper type of a pick, somebody that we just haven't had on the board, right? Like not Caminetti, not Montgomery sounds like it just went, not Tibbs, not Savage, Saint-Che, I already mentioned. I think that's fair. I think a guy like Ryan Sloan, and then the two catchers is who I would probably point out. So you could probably line up, I don't want to guess too broadly, but you can probably line up a guy like Malcolm Moore and Walker Janik, both as underslots. I mean, I'm just going to guess here, like based on where the board is. And so if the Cubs were like so moved by these guys that this is their pick, this is where they're going on the college side, Ryan Sloan, and then those two guys would be Todd is loving this. So I haven't heard anything. I haven't gotten any messages.
Tibbs to the Giants.
Tibbs to the Giants. All right, now we're getting pretty fun. What will be fun, and I mentioned this on the Discord, is if the Cubs completely pass on Savage, and we spend all this time talking about him. And I will point out there that obviously it depends on who they pick, but I'm honestly still fine with it. There are some aspects of a guy from a medical point of view that I have no idea about. I'm not going to speculate that he's got any issues, but like you have to at least weigh that in there. So if like he fell or he falls even further or something like that, you have to at least kind of weigh those things that we're just not going to be privy to. And frankly, just from a just a pure player standpoint, we're not going to report anyway.
Todd,
even if we were. So
Todd, your prediction: Savage, Smith, or other?
I'm going Savage.
Bryan?
Other.
Rich?
I'm going to stay with Savage. That's what I said earlier.
Zumach? Savage?
I'm going Savage. Yep.
All right.
I got my Will Ferrell dance ready. My Will Ferrell chair
We
dance.
sit and wait. We got the most people that have joined the show watching right now, so we appreciate you guys tuning in. And we sit here and wait. We wait for the pick to come in because it's only a matter of time. Man, I don't know. I'm excited, guys.
Yeah, I mean, Savage is the poster boy of Northside Bound. I mean, he has been all spring, and so this is a potential great moment for Greg and Todd, who've been banging that drum for a long time. So I'm excited just as a fan of your guys.
I also love Dakota Jordan, but he didn't put it in another gear coming down the stretch.
Yeah,
he's kind of fallen back to the comp round. But I mean, not because he did poorly; it's just because he didn't, take off during the College World Series, whereas Moore did.
Guys, so. I've got Savage already. I'm prepping. I gotta get the graphics.
Me. I thought you meant you already heard.
No. Sorry. I shouldn't have said that. My bad.
Our favorite
ready to go.
Our favorite Twitter follower, Alex, he's pumped right now. That's all I'm gonna say. Alex is pumped.
Wow.
Can't
ready to go.
Better not let us down. That's what he
My draft tracker still hasn't published the Giants pick, so that's it. Does anyone have Joe Doyle pulled up? That's the important question, I think.
I sure do.
I do.
Yeah.
All right, I figured you guys do. All right. So as we sit and wait, we can hopefully. I mean, I think that we're leaning with a college player here, whether it's many of the different options, but I think we're leaning college player here more than likely. which is fun.
Oh yeah, I mean, if it's not Savage, I think Smith would be the pick here,
and could potentially time up with the Cubs timeline. Yeah. Whatever the timeline, I guess whatever the timeline is.
When they drafted Cade, they really put a priority on being a gamer and sort of that dog mentality in the playoffs. And, Savage certainly showed that, pitching sort of, I don't know, partially injured and on a short rest a little bit like he did. And I think that would go a long way with the Cub Scouts as well.
We love guys that got that dog in them.
Well, I like that he's played against big teams and he's played big games against big teams. I mean, he's not afraid of the moment either. I mean, he knows who he's going against. And I tell you what, when the bigger the game, the better he pitched. I keep refreshing Joe's page.
All right.
Okay.
Right.
Looks like we might be getting closer to a pick coming in here, right?
Yeah, I think I've heard a couple things here. I'll try to confirm, but
yep. I'll wait to post it here. The pick should be coming in on our screen here in seconds.
Okay.
Anyone got Joe Doyle ready? All right.
They can't go wrong, really.
They can't go wrong. Between the two options we've talked about most, I don't think they can go wrong.
No, they can't.
There's people commenting in the chat, in the YouTube chat. Are we good to go? Are we good to post it?
I mean, yes. I've gotten like 4 messages on it.
It's on Twitter as well.
Room, so
it's on Twitter as well.
Yeah, right. There. Yeah.
It is.
The Chicago Cubs select Cam Smith with the 14th overall pick in the 2024 draft.
Let's go.
They got a third baseman, boys.
Let's go, son.
They got a third baseman. The Cubs get Cam Smith out of Florida State. So I guess, I don't know. Zumach, I'll kick it to you first. I'm going to kick it around the horn here a little bit. Kick it to you first, Zumach. What are your thoughts on Cam Smith being the newest Cub?
I mean, Cape performer, dramatically improved where he was from his freshman year to his sophomore year. Really cut down on chase, really cut down on whiffs. The big question that folks have on him across the game right now is, did he adapt his swing too much to cut down on chase and cut down on whiffs that he's cut down on launch, the ability to launch the ball? Now, it doesn't mean he didn't still have some home runs, but his swing from his freshman year to his sophomore year, this year, is pretty dramatically different. And I think there's a lot of elements of that are good, but there's probably some time, like there's probably an appropriate middle ground. And I imagine a team picking with like where the Cubs are picking right now, and it sounds like they're picking Cam Smith, which is very fun, is that you believe that there's that appropriate middle ground that you can still get to some more launch while you keep whiffs and chase at a reasonable level. We know that they value Cape performance, Cape Cod League performance. And you weren't getting Travis Bazzana, who was the MVP this year in the Cape Cod, like Matt Shaw was the MVP last year in the Cape Cod. You weren't getting Travis Bazzana. So if you're going to get somebody, Cam Smith was a really good option there. I saw him in Omaha, and I don't want to like judge too much, but I will say that his reaction time at third base is a little bit slow. His range was diminished, which I don't know what to make of that, because when I saw him earlier in the year, that's not the case. I thought he was actually an above average third baseman. Is that just a small sample size? Is that just bad reads? Is that a couple really, really hot days in Omaha where he just wasn't getting, good looks off the bat in the sun? Totally possible, but I think it's just something to watch there. I'm still a little bullish on Cam Smith, but I think you really have to be confident that you can get to the launch.
Yeah, I would expect them to raise the hands, steepen the attack angle a little bit, and be willing to live with more strikeouts for sure.
This is the first time in like 7 years that I got a card made for the Cubs' first round pick.
Nice.
The streak has ended.
The streak is over. Todd, what are your thoughts on the Cubs get of Cam Smith here?
Well, I like the hitting profile. I like that he's, even though he is 6'3", 220 something, he's still athletic enough that if they needed him to, he could play somewhere else. He doesn't have to stick at third, but he's still, based on the timeline of most college bats, they're probably ready in a couple of years. Shaw could be close to heading to Iowa now. Nico was the exception, but most college bats that are in the top of the draft usually take a couple years to get there. So I think we're going to see him quick. I'm supposed to go to Appleton at the end of the month, beginning of August. I don't think he's going to be assigned to South Bend right out of the gate. Probably be Myrtle Beach, I would think.
Rich, what's your reaction to Cam Smith? Are you happy we get a third baseman, another infielder? That the Cubs have been really good about drafting those guys.
We got a plethora of infielders, but that's great. Most of those guys can play around the diamond. So, no, I'm excited to see what he can do. I know with the changing dates and stuff, I'll be curious to see what they kind of do if he'll come to Arizona and play a little bit, because I think there's supposed to be like a bumper between the end of the complex league and before they start like fall instructs and stuff. So, hoping I get to see some of these guys play a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say you'll have the first view of really all these guys. All these guys we're talking about over the next few days. You'll have the first photos. I'm very, very sure about that. So I'm excited to see what you can snap. Bryan, what are you thinking, man?
Yeah, Kylie McDaniel posted a long thread of players that he'd seen this year and had unique video of, the ESPN writer. And he posted these videos from Uplift Labs, which I have to admit I find somewhat confusing, but they kind of like measure motion capture without needing the sensors. So they use video to sort of measure certain traits in a player. And if you look at the video of Cam Smith, one thing that's very clear is he is far, far above major league average in how fast his arm is moving relative to others, which I believe essentially means that he has extremely fast hands at the plate. And so what that tells me is if we do what Zumach and I were talking about, which is, try to allow him to get more into the power, one of the things you can bank on there is even if he gets a little steeper, his hands move so fast that he, and they clearly believe in it in his eyes as well at the plate, that he will be able to sort of keep the strikeouts in a good spot because of his hand speed just being at another level, even in compared to major league hitters. So I'm very excited about that. I think, really good chance at having a guy who has both positive hit and positive power tools, even when he gets up to the major leagues. And, that plays always. You can never argue with that.
Zumach, what do you think it means when you have Cam Smith, but you have Trey Savage, who, like Bryan mentioned, has been the poster boy for Northside Bound over the past several months? What are your thoughts on passing on a guy like Trey Savage in order to get Cam Smith?
Yeah, I mean, you don't draft for need because you could easily make the case that the two of those guys are justifiable from that standpoint from a need. No, I think it's very much. I think you have to weigh in how the team is evaluating from a model perspective, and I bet Cam Smith absolutely popped on that. When you add in some of the biomechanical stuff to the fact that the Cape performance, let me pull up his data right here. He had an in-zone whiff of 10.3%, which is very good. So he was generating a lot of contact on pitches in the zone. His chase rate was it was below average, which is good. Better than average, which is at 21.2. And his overall just swing and miss was only 17.9% or whatever like that. He had a 90th percentile exit velocity over 111. So, he's hitting the ball hard. His biomechanical data says that he's probably able to even steepen things, like Bryan was saying, and still hit the ball with some juice. I still think there's a middle ground between his A swing and his B swing, his freshman year and his sophomore year. And, if you marry those two, I mean, I have evaluators that I trust tremendously that have Cam Smith consistently in their top 6 or 7 players in the class. It's going to be very, very internal model specific, but that's a really good player. I still wasn't sure that they were going to pick that. And I don't think, as a huge Trey Savage fan, I am completely fine with this, knowing that I trust the people in the room to make that call. Again, I don't know medicals or anything like that, but it will be very fascinating to kind of watch this play out down the line.
I want to kick it to you guys because there's plenty of comments below talking about what this means or doesn't mean as far as Matt Shaw, the third baseman. And so we'll get into that here in a second. But I do want to read off Cam Smith's numbers from his sophomore year, this past year, his sophomore year over at Florida State. He did log 66 games during his time at Florida State playing third base. He had a batting average of 387. He had an on-base percentage close to 500. He was on base almost 50% of the time, 488. Slugging was 654. That's an OPS over 1,100 for his OPS this past season. Home runs, 16. Doubles, 22. He struck out 48 times, walked 44 times. So almost a 1-to-1 ratio there in terms of strikeout to walk ratio. That's always super, super fun. But yeah, and like you guys mentioned, his time on the Cape this past year in 2023, his numbers on the Cape were 347 with a 406 on base percentage, 981 OPS. That's what the Cubs have looked for years in terms of the performance on the Cape. So I do want to kick it to let's go to Todd first. Todd, what are your thoughts on how this relates or doesn't relate in any way, shape, or form to Matt Shaw, the third baseman?
I don't think it relates at all. I think in this league, if you can hit, you're going to play. They'll find a place to put your bat in the lineup. And it's that simple. I mean, I don't know if he switches to an outfield spot, he DHs, he plays first base. But he's a pretty good athlete that, he could switch. I don't think he's third base full time, but they're going to put their best defenders in the infield for sure. And if he has to DH or move, he will. But I think right now, just let him hit.
Yeah. Bryan, your thoughts on the Matt Shaw conversation?
Yeah, I don't think the Cubs are certainly in a place to, be able to let that influence what they're thinking. I don't think that we have enough information to know where Matt Shaw's best position will be, much less what Cam Smith's will be. So this stuff has plenty of time to evolve. I can easily see a world where, Matt Shaw could play second base someday. I can see a world where Cam Smith plays right field. You just let these things play out. I don't believe that, that they would profile to be at the same level in 2025 either. So you're not going to be in a spot where you're going to have to, sacrifice playing time because you're, two of your last two first round picks are both on the same team needing to have the same position. So I think they both will have the runway to prove themselves, and what they do with it, is sort of the fun part that we're here to follow.
Yeah, I wanted to share this from Friday Starters on Twitter. They do a great job of covering college baseball, and during the draft, they post graphics like this for draft picks out of college, kind of showing the percentile rank, showing the stats overall, but then also the percentile ranks compared to the rest of college baseball. And hitting wise, I mean, Cam Smith, this was about as good as you can get, right? 99th percentile in batting average, 99th percentile in OBP. This is important to kind of put into perspective, I feel like, because some of the college numbers are so outrageous and they're so hard to follow. They don't translate in the same way that they do to major league numbers, or even prospect numbers in the minor leagues. So to have that batting average, OBP, slugging all in the 95th or better percentile is pretty impressive. ISO numbers, 85th percentile. Really, the strikeout percentage at the 70th percentile at a 14.9% clip is the worst of the bunch, and that's obviously still very, very strong. So I don't know. What any takeaways from this, guys? It's okay if not.
I mean, I think it's exactly what, and this isn't even factoring in the data, which is strong.
Yes.
So, I mean, if you were just in the draft room, right? You accidentally got locked in the room and no one else is there to make the call, and you're just looking at all this production, you're looking at all of the stuff on your model, you're seeing what's probably absolutely popping. I mean, I completely get it. I get looking at a guy, and I like Cam Smith. Again, I've kind of told you what my concerns are there. It's just that the range didn't look as good when I saw him live, but I mean, from a production standpoint, it looks awesome. And he's on the younger side too, which I think is really, really fun. I'm trying to remember when he turned. I guess he has turned 21.
Yeah, he turned 21 in February.
Yeah, he turned 21. So I guess that, that's part of it. But still on the younger side. And yeah, Cam Smith is awesome and a player that played in Omaha.
Guys, I'm worried. I'm worried here because everybody in the comments seems happy. And
that's a problem. Yeah, get that out of here.
What are we doing? We're not allowed to be happy here. I think we spent as long as I've been doing this draft show, the live draft show, I think that nobody's been pleased with the pick that comes in. I feel like between Cade or Jordan Wicks or Ed Howard or whoever it might be, like these past several years, people have not been content with the pick. So the fact that we're happy this year, I don't know. It's fun.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that feels sort of unique is I don't think there's sort of any doubt in my mind that this is just a full slot pick. And, I think if you look at the Cubs picks the last few years, you've always wondered, like, even when Matt Shaw was taken, I remember having the conversation, like, do we think they maybe got a little bit of a deal, even though they ultimately didn't? Certainly with Cade Horton, we figured in the moment that they got a deal on that one. If people are wondering, I have no information, but I can tell you that this is very, very likely to come in, at a number that, if it's not exactly full slot, it's going to be close enough that it might as well be. Yeah. And so I don't think it tells us much about the Cubs' overall strategy. I think it just tells us they really like this player.
Yeah.
In many ways, doesn't this feel like 2021? Like a guy that we didn't necessarily think might be on the board. And I don't know, maybe this isn't quite as extreme as Jordan Wicks falling to 21. But in many ways, it kind of gives that era, especially because I had mentally checked off Cam Smith off the list when I was getting the messages that he, with Pittsburgh. And so, I think that this is a guy that they probably anticipated there's at least a possibility he was on the board. But I bet they, like, he just checked all the boxes and kind of like Matt Shaw last year where, like this guy, just pop him. Don't overthink things.
Yeah. I mean, they were going to get a good pick, whoever they took. It was the draft's pretty good through probably 2 or 3 rounds. And then after that, it's not that deep. Not like last year where you could get a really good player in 5, 6, 7.
All right, guys. Let's start to wrap this up here. We're at an hour and a half, which is actually this draft was even faster than last year's draft, I think.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. They're just getting through this pretty quick. Trey Savage, for what it's worth, is still on the board, and the Milwaukee Brewers are up. So that's fun. That's going to be great. The Marlins picked PJ Morlando, which feels like Marlins going to do Marlins things. Your guy, the switch pitcher that Zumach, you studied the name and you have that for me now.
Gerangelo Saincha.
Yes, he was selected by the Seattle Mariners.
Oh, he was? Okay, yeah. Awesome. Yeah, they were all in on that.
Yes.
But I'm surprised. So they passed up Savage for Saincha. Sorry, I'm still getting like messages from folks, and I'm trying to triage those. But okay. So Saincha over Savage, that does raise some questions, because the Mariners have scouted Savage since he was like a high schooler. Like Kylie McDaniel had that.
Okay.
So that's really interesting. Now it's a different regime. Well, no, it'd be the same regime. So yeah, that's really interesting.
All right, guys, I want to put a bow on this to a certain degree, but I do want to, before we wrap up, I want to talk a little bit about second round because, and as we kind of transition to the rest of the draft, I'll kick it to you guys for some names just to be on the lookout for, especially consider, like Bryan mentioned, right? This might be a slot or so pick, and how this might impact the second round and in the future. Todd, are there any names that you are keeping an eye on in the second round specifically?
Yeah, Dasan Hill is a guy that I loved, that I picked in my 10-round mock. He would be my favorite pick, but I think they're going to have to overpay to get him. And if the Cubs can't meet his price, then I think they go with a pitchability guy like Prager from, I think it's Texas A&M. Ryan Prager, lefty from Texas A&M. He's outstanding. He pitched well in the College World Series too. The guy that's moving up is Dax Whitney, who is a right-handed pitcher from Idaho, a baseball hotbed these days. He would be my third pick.
Zumach, your thoughts on the second round?
Yeah, there's a prep shortstop that's local in my area that I'll hold off on saying anything about, but if they were able to get him, I would be absolutely ecstatic. I don't anticipate he's going to be available. I think he's a first rounder. So I'll avoid on that, though you'll see me post about him probably pretty shortly this evening. I think that there's a couple left-handers that they really like. Blake Larson is one to kind of watch for. Chase Harlan is a guy that's a third baseman that's a prep that I've heard they've liked. I don't know if he's in play now with the money available. And I think Kylie had, and I hadn't heard anything about this, but he's mentioned him a couple times, Hunter Cairns, who's a catcher out of Florida, prep catcher out of Florida.
Yeah.
And I think he even had like Cam Smith and Hunter Cairns in the top like 2 rounds. So I mean, so far I think he's one for one. And wouldn't surprise me to see him kind of nail Cairns on that as well. What's up?
The Brewers took Braylon Payne.
Yeah.
At number 17.
Wow.
Holy
Matty Savage, I guess. So
I wonder if those medicals must have scared off some teams or something. There might have been something. You never know. Or maybe.
As far as second round picks go, I was thinking about some of the Cubs pitching draft picks last year, Jackson Wiggins, Will Sanders, a couple guys that had in common that there were worlds where they could have been first round picks. I think the Cubs believed, if Sanders had a slightly better spring, he ends up a first round pick. If Wiggins stays healthy, he ends up a first round pick. The guy to me that fits that same sort of profile is Ben Hess out of Alabama. That is a guy that I could definitely see, especially because the Cubs likely didn't go underslot here, which I think reduces the odds that they go with a prep player in the second round that they have to overpay, because they're just at that point, then you'd be running out of scratch a little bit. I think Ben Hess really ticks a lot of boxes that this team has shown before that they would prioritize in a player.
I like that. I like that you mentioned Ben Hess. DJ Dix out of Wisconsin. He's also a prep player. He would have to be an overslot guy. I didn't mention him earlier just because of that. Because the Cubs went college in the first round, and Smith is probably going to be a full slot guy. They really don't. It kind of changes everything, because that's going to eat up, 55% of their pool right off the bat.
All right, guys. I want to share. I know Zumach, you shared this over on your Twitter account. I want to share this this video of Cam Smith hitting. I think it might be good to get some eyes on this. I don't think it should disrupt our YouTube stream, and I don't know how it's going to come, if it's going to come across smooth or not, but we will find out here momentarily. We got open face of Cam Smith doing his thing, which is fun. So I will kick it to each of you guys to kind of plug yourself, and can't thank you guys enough for joining on this show as we did this. Bryan, we'll kick it to you first to give some plugs.
Yeah, no, I just encourage everyone to keep their eye on Northside Bound with what these fine gentlemen are going to produce in the next few days. And we will have a show on Cubs on Deck talking through it this week. So I'm looking forward to that. And just appreciate the hard work you guys have put into this process.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on tonight, Bryan. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Always enjoy it.
Always good to see you, Bryan.
You too, buddy.
All right, Todd, I know you got some big things coming up the next few days or so.
Yeah, I'm going to be live blogging tomorrow, round by round, rounds 3 through 10. First blog post will go up, and then it's just updated. It's the same post over and over, just update it throughout the day. That'll happen all day tomorrow during the day, and then on Thursday or Tuesday, I'll do rounds 11 through 20. And I'll be making cards. Greg Zumach often helps me with some video, sends me video to keep up, because you only have like 15 to 17 minutes to get ready for the next round. So you detail a pick, so it happens quick. So I'll be doing that.
Rich, I know that you'll get some eyes, like we mentioned. Where are you? You're back down in Arizona, right?
Back out in Arizona for another week, and then gonna go visit our friends in Iowa for a long weekend. Shoot some stuff out there.
Yeah, so we can keep an eye on your work over on Twitter at Beast. At what is it, Beast 22?
22. Mm-hmm.
Beast 22 on Twitter. You can find him on Instagram. Look for pictures of these new draft picks, because hopefully you'll have the first eyes on them. That'll be fun.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Zumach, you want to plug yourself?
Yeah, you've heard from me for a bit, and you'll hear from me, I guess, over the next few days. I'll probably be tackling the first piece that we have on Cam Smith now, as well as something that I really want to do. I got some really robust set of data from both the pitching side and the hitting side, so I'm hoping to take care of a more of a data-centric piece on all the draft picks that I've gotten, or that the Cubs will take, that I have data for later on this summer. So, that should be good. But otherwise, hey, this is going to be a fun night. It's going to be a fun few days. Let's get some all-stars.
Hey, let me ask one quick question before we sign off. All of us have done a Cubs prospect list very recently. Anyone willing to say they have Cam Smith as a top 5 prospect in the system yet, or is it just too strong a group that you feel like you can't do it yet?
I wouldn't.
I would not.
No.
Not yet.
Because top 5 is a top 100 prospect for me.
Yeah.
Easily. Probably like even 6th on that. And I think Cam Smith's a little bit outside of that. Very good, but outside of it.
I think
there's such a
pushing 10 or 11.
Sorry. Yeah. No, I think there's such a strong top 7 in this organization right now that it gets tough. It's tough to rank them in that top 7. I think that you could argue. I mean, right now, I think that most of us have Jackson Wiggins ranked 8th, right? I think did all of us actually?
I have
Jackson Wiggins.
I have him up there. I have him like 6, I think.
Yeah. So we all have him. Like I think that you could see Cam Smith after that group of 7. Todd said 10, 11, something like that. But I could see him as high as 8 potentially, right? So I don't know. I'll need to dig more into the video and the numbers for sure.
He could supplant Rosario as the top power prospect.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys, I will let everybody go. Can't thank you guys enough for tuning into this live stream. We've really appreciated it. And this has been the most successful one in terms of the numbers that we've seen from people joining in. So thank you guys for joining in. You guys joining in and participating. Thanks to everybody that was in the chat throughout the entire night. That was super fun to see. And we'll talk to you guys soon. We'll be back with the podcast here in the next few days or so. And then all kinds of written work. So thank you guys. And we'll talk to you all very, very soon. See you guys.